What if your reality isn't shaped by what you do, but by the quiet, invisible voice you listen to when no one else is around? Most people believe change begins with action, with discipline, with habits. But James Allen believed something more terrifying. He believed that the world you live in is a mirror, not of your choices, but of your thoughts. Every fear you carry, every doubt you feed, every dream you neglect, it's not happening to you. It's happening through you. Because the most powerful force in your life is the one you don't even notice, your own mind. They say we become what we think about, but we never really stop to ask, what are we actually thinking about all day long? Because most of us aren't thinking about truth. We're thinking about not being enough. We're thinking about failing, about how we should be more confident, more disciplined, more successful, just like the people we see online. James Allen wasn't a philosopher in the academic sense. He didn't teach in universities or publish volumes of theory. He was a quiet man, a mystic, a gardener, and in 1903, he wrote a book so powerful it quietly changed the world without anyone noticing. As a Man Thinketh. Allen's message was simple, almost too simple. You are not what you wish for. You are not what you say. You are what you think. But that idea, that you are your thoughts, is more radical than it sounds. Because if it's true, then the life you're living right now isn't just happening to you. It's flowing out of your mind like water from a spring. Not just your successes, but your failures. Not just your virtues, but your addictions. Not just your clarity, but your confusion. Every moment, every decision, every outcome has been silently shaped by what you allow to grow in the garden of your mind. And that's terrifying. Because it means you're not a victim of circumstance. You're the gardener of your fate, and your thoughts are the seeds. But here's the catch. Most of us don't realize we're planting weeds. We wake up and scroll, we compare, we judge, we fear, and then we wonder why we feel so lost, so anxious, so empty. Allen would say, look at your thoughts, not with judgment, but with honesty. Because your life is always showing you your thinking, not immediately, not obviously, but inevitably. A man does not suddenly fall. He slowly drifts, thought by thought, until one day he wakes up in a place he never meant to be. And that's the real danger. Not that we think negative thoughts, but that we don't even notice we're thinking them. Because thought becomes background noise. It becomes a silent script we're constantly reciting without knowing who wrote it. Think about the last time you failed. Now ask yourself, what thoughts led up to that failure? Did you already believe you'd lose? Did you tell yourself you weren't ready? Did you secretly think, what's the point? Thoughts like these don't scream, they whisper. But those whispers shape your choices, and those choices shape your world. James Allen believed something radical, that heaven and hell are not places we go. They are realities we build with thought. A man is literally what he thinks, he wrote, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. So if you want to change your life, don't start with your habits. Don't start with your routines. Start with the invisible. Start with the way you speak to yourself, the stories you silently believe, the assumptions you've never questioned. Because you can change your actions and still be trapped, still be ruled by the same thoughts, still be circling the same drain, just with better posture. Real change, the kind that sticks, starts in the soil, not the surface. But let's not mistake this for positivity culture. Allen wasn't talking about affirmations and vision boards. He was talking about inner honesty, the kind that hurts. Because before you can plant better thoughts, you have to face the ones already there, the bitter ones, the ones you inherited from parents who didn't believe in you, from a culture that profits off your self-doubt, from old wounds that never healed properly. You have to see those thoughts, and then not fight them, but replace them. This is the forgotten truth of James Allen. You cannot not think, but you can choose what you think about. And that choice? That's your power. That's the hidden door most people walk past their whole lives, because it's easier to blame, to say, I'm this way because of my childhood, because of my trauma, because of capitalism, because of genetics, and all those things matter, but they don't define you, not unless you keep repeating them in your mind like a sacred story. There's a moment in every person's life, sometimes quiet, sometimes dramatic, when they realize, I don't have to keep thinking this way. And that moment is the birth of inner freedom. It's not flashy, no fireworks, just the subtle sense that maybe, just maybe, you're not your thoughts. You're the chooser of thoughts. And when you start choosing wisely, with awareness, everything begins to shift. You speak differently, you move differently, you even breathe differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You've become the gardener, and for the first time, you're planting on purpose. Allen believed that no one is doomed, no matter how deep their suffering. But he also believed that no one is saved by luck. We are saved by discipline, by inner attention, by a quiet refusal to let garbage live rent-free in our minds. So the question isn't, will you think? The question is, what will you think? And if you don't decide, someone else will. Because the world is full of thought farmers, marketers, politicians, influencers. They all want to plant in your garden, and if you don't protect it, they will decide what grows. That's the hidden war James Allen was warning us about, the war for your mind. And it doesn't look like violence. It looks like TikToks. It looks like ads. It looks like your inner voice saying, you're not enough. But it all begins and ends in the same place, your thought. You want to become someone stronger? It starts with the way you think, not just the what, but the how. Do you think slowly, with space, with depth? Or do you think in flashes, in swipes, in echoes of other people's opinions? James Allen's truth was never meant to be trendy. It was meant to be transformative, but only for those brave enough to sit quietly and listen to what their mind is really saying. So sit, listen, and ask yourself, is this the kind of thought I want to become? Because in the end, you always do. The world you live in is not just out there, it's in here. The person who cuts you off in traffic, the coworker who dismisses your ideas, the endless scrolling that leaves you hollow. These are not just external events. They are shaped by something deeper, how you think about them. James Allen believed that every outer condition of our lives is a direct result of our inner condition. That thought, not fate, not other people, not chance, is the architect of our experience. In his words, circumstances do not make the man, they reveal him. And this is where most people panic. Because if your thoughts are negative, fearful, chaotic, then your world will be too. Not because of magic, not because the universe is a genie, but because your perception filters reality. Because your emotions respond not to what is, but to what you believe is happening. Let's say you're walking through a park and someone laughs behind you. If you're confident, you'll think they're enjoying their day. If you're insecure, you'll assume they're laughing at you. Same reality, different experience. And the only difference is the thought. This is not just mindset. It's not just positive thinking. It's the realization that the quality of your life is the quality of your thoughts. James Allen compared the mind to a garden. You are always growing something, whether you mean to or not. If you neglect it, weeds grow. Bitterness, resentment, envy. You might not have planted them, but they flourish in the soil of unconscious thought. But if you cultivate it, with purpose, with love, with clarity, something else grows. Peace, strength, understanding. He writes, good thoughts bear good fruit, bad thoughts bear bad fruit. It's that simple, and that terrifying. Because now you are the gardener, not life, not others, you. But there's a darker implication here. Something that creeps in when you realize just how powerful thought really is. What if the life you're living is exactly the one you've been allowing with your beliefs? What if your constant anxiety, your need to be liked, your endless self-criticism, what if those aren't personality traits but mental habits? Habits you've repeated so often they became your identity. James Allen was brutal in his clarity. He didn't coddle. He didn't say, you're doing your best. He said, men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. And here's where most people stop reading. Because that's not a comforting truth. It's not believe and achieve. It's you are what you repeatedly think, whether you know it or not. Your thoughts are the blueprint, and the life around you is the structure they built. You say you want peace, but if your thoughts are full of conflict, you will find war in everything. You say you want love, but if your thoughts are laced with fear, You will repel intimacy like a poison. The mind is not neutral. It colors everything. This is why so many people feel stuck, not because life has trapped them, but because they keep replanting the same seeds: worry, blame, comparison, doubt. And then they ask, why won't anything grow? But maybe the better question is, why do I keep choosing these seeds? Now, this doesn't mean that everything bad in your life is your fault. That's not what Alan meant. He wasn't pushing guilt. He was pointing to power. Because if your life is truly shaped by your thoughts, then your freedom begins in your mind. Not in external change, not in new relationships, not in moving cities, but in mastering the soil from which your reality grows. This is why you can remove toxic people from your life and still feel stuck. Why you can quit your job and still feel empty. Because the outer change was never the root was within. And this is why the modern obsession with control, controlling others' outcomes, perceptions, is doomed from the start. Because control without inner clarity is just rearranging chaos. What Alan offers is not control, but cultivation. You don't need to force the fruit. You just need to tend to the garden, to remove the weeds, to plant intentionally, and to be patient. Because here's the truth. Thought doesn't work like a light switch. You can't just think positive and expect miracles. You must cultivate over time with discipline, with honesty. Because your life will always drift toward the direction of your dominant thoughts. And if you want to change the direction, you start not with effort, but awareness. What am I feeding my mind? What am I rehearsing in silence? What am I growing without knowing? The answers are not always comfortable, but they are always revealing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your life is a mirror, not of your dreams, not of your wishes, but of your thoughts. And the mirror is brutally honest. But here's the catch. What if your deepest thoughts aren't even yours? What if they were planted long ago without your permission? In the next part, we'll explore the hidden origins of your inner voice and why breaking free starts with unlearning what you were taught to believe. You were not born thinking the way you think. You didn't arrive with shame or self-doubt or that relentless voice in your head telling you you're not enough. That was taught, not in a classroom, but through silence, through sideways glances, through the subtle punishments of being different, through the loud expectations of being normal. You absorbed it. From your parents, who meant well but passed on their own wounds. From your school, which rewarded obedience more than imagination. From society, which taught you to measure yourself by mirrors, by comparison, by competition, by consumption. And without knowing it, your mind became a container for voices that were never yours. James Allen said, "The outer condition of a person's life will always be found to be harmoniously related to his inner state. But what if your inner state was never authentically yours? What if your inner voice is actually the teacher who shamed you for being too slow? The parent who praised you only when you succeeded? The culture that sells you your worth by the pixel? It's no wonder your thoughts feel like a battlefield. They were built during war. We live in a time where the mind is more crowded than ever. Advertisements, opinions, algorithms, they don't just want your attention, they want your identity. They whisper who you should be, what you should want, what success looks like, what failure means. And if you're not careful, you start calling their voices your thoughts. But there's a difference between thinking and being thought through. Modern life doesn't just influence your beliefs, it colonizes them. And if you don't protect the borders of your mind, someone else will draw the map for you. So here's the hard truth. Your anxiety might not be irrational. It might be the echo of living inside a story that was never yours to begin with. A story where you're only lovable if you're useful, where rest is laziness, where ambition is survival, where being enough is always just one upgrade away. James Allen urged readers to look within, not to escape the world, but to reclaim themselves from it. He wrote, "Man is made or unmade by himself. In the armory of thought, he forges the weapons by which he destroys himself. But also," he said, "he also fashions the tools with which he builds heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace." This is not just philosophy, it's personal. Because until you stop and ask, whose thoughts are these? You will live your entire life as a reaction. reacting to expectations, reacting to shame, reacting to ghosts in your mind that keep you small, even when no one else is stopping you. You don't need to hate those voices. They were survival mechanisms. But survival is not the same as truth. You can thank those thoughts for getting you here and still choose not to carry them further. Because here's the miracle James Allen saw clearly. The mind can be rewritten. Not easily, not quickly, but truthfully. And the first sentence of that rewrite begins with a question. What do I believe that is hurting me? And where did I learn it? Because healing doesn't always start with love. Sometimes it starts with subtraction, with pulling out the weeds you didn't plant but have been watering anyway, with letting go of the rules that were never real, with burning the blueprint that was given to you by people who never asked who you wanted to become. Your thoughts are not set in stone, they are soil, and you are not here to repeat history, you are here to break it, to reclaim the space between stimulus and response, to remember that silence is not emptiness, it is possibility, and that the mind, once seen clearly, becomes a compass, not a cage. But if the mind is a compass, where is it pointing? And what happens when your thoughts no longer serve your future? In the next part, we'll uncover the final step, how to transform thought into destiny and reclaim the power to become exactly who you were meant to be. At every moment, you're walking toward something, but most people don't know what that something is because their mind is walking for them, not guided by choice, but by habit, by inherited fears, by unchallenged assumptions so deep they've become invisible. This is where James Allen's message becomes dangerous. He didn't just say that your thoughts matter. He said they become matter, that what you allow to live in your mind will eventually show up in your life. He wrote, "The soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears." In other words, what you dwell on, you summon. Think long enough about your inadequacy, and your life will begin to reflect it. Think obsessively about failure, and you'll sabotage every opportunity to protect yourself from the pain of disappointment. Think about how unfair life is, and slowly the world will bend to mirror that bitterness. It's not magic, it's momentum, a psychological gravity that pulls your behavior, your decisions, your tone of voice, until the future you fear becomes the life you live. But here's the truth. If your thoughts can create suffering, they can also create peace. If they can imprison you, they can free you. If they can distort your life, they can redesign it. But not by accident, by discipline. James Allen didn't preach positive thinking as a trick to get what you want. He saw it as a form of responsibility. Because when you realize your thoughts shape the very texture of your life, there's no one left to blame. And that's terrifying, because now it's up to you. To notice the lies you tell yourself when you're afraid. To stop indulging the same self-pity loops that give you a false sense of comfort. To stop looking for someone else to fix the chaos that only you can truly clean up. You're not being punished. You're being given a mirror. And in that mirror, you'll see every reason you've stayed small, every thought you repeat when no one's watching, every belief that sounds logical but was born in fear. And the hardest part? You'll have to let go of those thoughts before your life changes. Because your life doesn't change first. Your mind does. That's what no one tells you about transformation. It's not a lightning bolt. It's a decision. Repeated so many times it rewires who you are. And when your mind becomes aligned with truth, peace, and clarity, your life starts to follow. Not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily. Like dawn breaking through a window that's been dusty for years. James Allen said, "Circumstance does not make the man. It reveals him to himself. Every crisis, every disappointment, every failure, they don't destroy you, they expose you. And when you're exposed, you finally see what's been living in your mind all along. That's your starting point, not some fantasy of perfection, but the raw, honest reality of your thoughts, unfiltered, unedited, and waiting to be reimagined. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to fix every thought. You just have to stop believing the ones that hurt you. Because thoughts only have power when they're followed. And freedom begins the moment you pause, question, and choose differently. You are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not the internalized voice of every critic you've ever met. You are the one who listens and decides what stays. So if you truly want to become, It's not about chasing anything. It's about returning. Returning to the part of you that was never lost, just buried under layers of noise. Returning to the stillness where clarity lives. Returning to the truth that you always had the power to become something more, not by changing the world, but by changing how you see it. Because the outer world is not your enemy. Your enemy is your unexamined belief that you are helpless to change. James Allen didn't ask you to believe in yourself. He asked you to believe in the power of thought. Because once you take control of that, everything else follows. But if the power was always within your thoughts, why don't we use it? Why do most people stay trapped even when the doors open? In the final part, we'll explore the last and hardest truth James Allen revealed, that responsibility is freedom, and freedom begins when excuses end. There's one last truth James Allen never sugarcoated, and it's the one that separates those who transform from those who repeat the same year 80 times and call it a life. It's this: no one is coming to save you. No mentor, no partner, no perfect book, perfect job, perfect moment. No retreat or therapy or podcast episode will do it for you, because the most radical act you can take is to stop waiting. James Allen didn't offer hacks or comfort. He offered clarity, the kind that hurts. Men are anxious to improve their circumstances, he wrote, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. It's easy to blame your life, harder to examine your role in it. But until you do that, until you take full ownership of your thoughts, you'll always feel powerless. You can spend your life pointing at circumstances, or you can realize your thoughts were steering the wheel all along. Here's the bitter truth. If you don't like where your life is going, it's not because the universe hates you, it's because the driver fell asleep, or worse, refused to take the wheel. And that driver is you. This is the crushing and beautiful weight of freedom. Because once you accept total responsibility, everything changes. You no longer react to life, you design it. You no longer beg people to treat you better. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to beg. You no longer drown in your past. You use it as raw material for something new. But this power comes at a cost. It means letting go of every excuse you've built your identity around. The story that your parents broke you, that society never gave you a chance, that you can't succeed unless someone else finally believes in you. It's not that those things don't matter. It's that clinging to them costs you your future. James Allen didn't say this would be easy. He said it would be worth it. He said, "A man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life, not the victim, not the passenger, the gardener, the director. And once you realize this, a strange thing happens. You stop asking for permission to change. You stop explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. You stop waiting for the right moment and create it. Because here's the final sacred truth of thought. You don't become what you wish for. You become what you believe. And belief is not an idea. It's a decision backed by action. So what are you rehearsing in your mind every day? Is it failure, rejection, doubt, or is it something braver? Is it a new story? One where you stop shrinking and start stepping forward even when you're afraid? Because fear doesn't go away when you change your thoughts, but it does lose its grip. And slowly, the life you once dreamed about stops being a fantasy and starts being familiar. Not because magic happened, but because you took responsibility for the one thing you always had control over: your mind, your thoughts, your power. So what now? You could close this video and go back to scrolling, back to telling yourself that someday you'll be ready, that someday the pain will stop on its own, that someday someone will come and hand you the life you want. Or you could do something different. You could start planting different thoughts, today, right now. You could become what you think, not to impress the world, not to prove anything, but because deep down, you always knew you were more than your excuses. And that's what James Allen tried to remind us. If this resonated with something buried deep, if it reminded you of a truth you've always known but kept ignoring, then don't let it fade. Like this video, subscribe for more soul-cutting philosophy like this, and share this with someone who's ready to remember their power. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen but to see.